Green is my favorite color. Love it even more than blue and yellow combined. The film begins with serene scenes of everyday life, then abruptly shifts to a dystopian 2029 Los Angeles, transformed into a desolate battlefield, strewn with debris and skeletal remains. Sarah Connor's voiceover sets the grim tone, revealing that 3 billion people perished on August 29, 1997, in an event known as Judgment Day, leading to a brutal war against an advanced army of machines. The scene intensifies as human rebels clash with a technologically superior force of robots, enduring heavy casualties yet managing to destroy several enemy units. Meanwhile, John Connor, the resistance leader, surveys the action from afar, underscored by Sarah narrating the backstory of Skynet's attempts to eliminate her and her son through time-traveling terminators, and the ongoing struggle to protect the future leader of humanity. The film begins with intense opening credits showcasing burning playgrounds, leading to a close-up of a Terminator's metallic face and glowing red eyes, set to dramatic drum beats. The scene shifts to a nighttime truck stop where electric disturbances and a glowing orb herald the arrival of a naked Terminator, identical to the one from the first movie. As the Terminator rises, it heads to a nearby biker bar. Inside, the bikers are initially amused by the naked newcomer, who demands a biker's clothes, boots, and motorcycle. When the biker refuses and mocks the Terminator, it responds with unstoppable force, subduing him and others who try to intervene. After a brief and violent altercation, where the Terminator shows no pain and deflects attacks, the scared biker hands over his keys. The scene sets the stage for the Terminator's menacing presence and mission. Set to George Thorogood's Bad to the Bone, the Terminator confidently exits the bar in full biker attire, confronts a barkeeper who threatens him with a shotgun, disarms him with ease, and rides away on a Harley-Davidson. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, a police officer reports a strange electrical event and investigates a suspicious burn mark. He's abruptly killed by the T-1000, a sleeker cyborg, who then disguises itself as the officer and uses the police car's computer to locate John Connor. John Connor, living with indifferent foster parents, dismisses their demands and heads out with his friend, blasting Guns N' Roses. In Pescadero State Hospital, Sarah Connor is depicted as a fiercely determined but troubled patient. She's visited by Dr. Silberman and a group of interns, who view her skeptically as she exercises intensely. Despite Sarah's intelligence and resilience, she's mistreated by staff who see her as delusional, forcibly medicating her after she resists. The T-1000 visits John Connor's foster home, asking about John, who has already left on his bike. When the T-1000 requests a photo of John, claiming it only needs to ask him some questions, Todd mentions a similar inquiry from another visitor earlier. Despite its suspicions, the T-1000 reassures them not to worry. Meanwhile, John hacks an ATM with a friend, using a decoding device, discussing how his mother Sarah tried to blow up a computer factory, which he deems crazy. They head to the mall with their stolen cash, unaware the Terminator is nearby. Sarah, heavily sedated in the hospital, dreams of Kyle Reese, who died protecting her. He warns her of John's danger and encourages her to persevere, reminding her that the future is not predetermined. When she awakens from this motivating dream, she finds herself back in her cell. Later, during a psychological review, Sarah watches an old video where she described a nuclear apocalypse. She had reacted violently then, frustrated by disbelief. However, she now tells Dr. Silberman that she no longer believes in Terminators or her previous claims, indicating a deceptive calm. In a secure computer lab, developer Miles Dyson accesses a vault to examine a computer chip and a robotic arm, both relics from a Terminator, under strict confidentiality from his superiors. Sarah Connor, aiming to be moved to a less secure ward, claims she's recovered, but Dr. Silberman suspects she's planning another escape and denies her request to see her son. When he refuses, Sarah attacks him and is subdued and sedated by orderlies, prompting Silberman to mock her as a model citizen. Meanwhile, John Connor and his friend Tim are in a canal when the Terminator spots and pursues them. Simultaneously, the T-1000, disguised as a cop, gets a lead on John's location at the Galleria. Inside, while John is distracted by arcade games, both Terminators close in. The T-1000 intercepts Tim for information and heads towards John, who is alerted by Tim and escapes to the mall's service areas. Trapped between the two cyborgs, John is in dire straits as the T-1000 draws a gun. The Terminator, disguised with roses hiding a shotgun, commands John to duck, then engages the T-1000, shielding John from gunfire. In the ensuing chaos, a janitor is accidentally killed. The Terminator continues to protect John, firing until the T-1000 is temporarily incapacitated, ensuring John's escape. During a fierce battle in a mall, the T-1000 quickly recovers from being shot by the Terminator, its metallic body healing itself. The fight spills into a clothing store, where the T-1000 throws the Terminator through a window but fails to slow him down, as he promptly resumes the chase. Meanwhile, John Connor struggles to start his motorcycle in a garage. Just as the T-1000 closes in, John manages to escape, with the T-1000 commandeering a truck to continue the pursuit, heedlessly causing chaos on the road. The chase leads to a drainage canal where the action intensifies. The T-1000 drives the truck off an overpass into the canal, narrowly missing John. As the chase continues in the canal, the Terminator, riding a Harley, intervenes by jumping into the canal, rescuing John from his bike and disabling the truck by shooting its tire. The truck crashes and catches fire, seemingly ending the T-1000's pursuit. However, the T-1000, undeterred and unscathed, reemerges in its liquid metal form, steals a police cruiser, and drives off, continuing its relentless hunt. As they escape, John asks the Terminator to stop and confirms it's a Cyberdyne Systems Model 101, a cybernetic organism with living tissue over a metal skeleton. Although John sees the bullet wounds on the Terminator, he's skeptical but understands that the Terminator is here to protect, not kill him. The Terminator reveals it was sent back in time by John himself from 35 years in the future. During their ride, the Terminator explains that their pursuer is a T-1000, an advanced prototype made of liquid metal. It advises against going to John's house as the T-1000 will anticipate that move. Concerned for his foster parents, John insists on calling them. Janelle answers, unusually kind, while in the background, Todd is heard yelling at the dog. Sensing something is off, the Terminator, using John's voice, subtly tests Janelle by asking about the dog, falsely naming it Wolfie. When she assures that Wolfie is fine, the Terminator discerns that the T-1000 has already killed John's foster parents and is impersonating Janelle. This is confirmed when the T-1000, still on the phone, morphs its arm back from a lethal blade used to kill Todd. The T-1000, realizing it's been tricked, kills the dog Max and leaves, knowing the real name now. The Terminator informs John that the T-1000 can mimic anything it touches of similar size, excluding complex items like bombs or guns, though it can form simple stabbing weapons. Meanwhile, at Pescadero Hospital, detectives show Sarah Connor surveillance photos from a 1984 police station attack by the first Terminator, along with recent photos indicating the same man at the mall. They inform her of John's missing status and her foster parents' murder, but she remains unresponsive. Silberman dismisses her silence as detachment from reality. Unnoticed, Sarah pockets a paperclip before being escorted back to her cell. John, reflecting on his past in Nicaragua, where his mother prepared him for leadership, is determined to rescue her, despite the Terminator's warning that the T-1000 might mimic Sarah to trap him. After learning that the Terminator must follow his commands, John asserts his authority by making it perform tasks like standing on one foot. An altercation with two men further proves the Terminator's obedience, but also forces John to intervene when it nearly kills one of them. He instructs the Terminator on the value of human life and, reasserting his control, directs it to assist in rescuing his mother. They continue their mission together. The T-1000 infiltrates Pescadero Hospital by blending in, first as the hallway floor, and then by taking on the appearance of a guard named Lewis, whom it kills and impersonates. Meanwhile, Sarah Connor, restrained and humiliated by guard Douglas, uses a stolen paperclip to escape her bindings and cell. As she moves through the hospital, she attacks Douglas with a broom handle, steals his keys and bacon, and then disables another guard with a tranquilizer. Simultaneously, Sarah confronts Dr. Silberman, using him as a hostage with a syringe filled with drain cleaner poised at his neck to escape from the security office. Despite her threats, a guard manages to rescue Silberman during her escape attempt. John and the Terminator arrive at the hospital, with the Terminator assuring John it won't kill anyone by non-lethally shooting a guard to gain entry. As alarms sound, Sarah narrowly avoids capture by locking doors behind her, but the T-1000, now aware of the commotion, continues its pursuit. Sarah Connor encounters the Terminator, her previous enemy, and panics, fleeing in terror. Ignoring John's calls, she's tackled by an orderly. John begs the Terminator to intervene. Quietly approaching, the Terminator removes the restraining wardens from Sarah, assuring her safety. Sarah, though terrified, hesitantly accepts the Terminator's hand. Just then, the T-1000 arrives, effortlessly moving through security bars thanks to its liquid metal form. Sarah and John flee to an elevator, pursued by the T-1000. The Terminator delays it with gunfire, acting as a shield until the elevator doors close. However, the T-1000 continues its pursuit, trying to breach the elevator by stabbing through the roof, slightly injuring Sarah. Reaching the garage, they escape in a commandeered police car as the T-1000 morphs through the elevator roof to follow. Despite being fired at, the T-1000 clings to the car's trunk and attacks, only to be shot off by the Terminator. It stops chasing as they speed away. John discards a piece of the T-1000 left in the trunk, which the T-1000 later reabsorbs, retreating back to the hospital. After escaping from the T-1000, John, Sarah, and the Terminator drive to safety. Sarah, appearing to offer John a comforting hug, instead checks him for injuries, scolding him for risking his life. John is hurt by her lack of warmth. The Terminator, noticing John's tears, inquires about them, but John dismisses it. The T-1000, undeterred, returns to Pescadero on foot, encountering and complimenting a police officer on his motorcycle before resuming its mission. At an abandoned gas station, the trio hides the car and tends to their wounds. The Terminator, demonstrating knowledge of human anatomy, cares for Sarah's shoulder, while she coldly notes this makes it a better killer. As Sarah removes bullets from the Terminator's back, John questions whether it feels pain. The Terminator explains it senses injuries, akin to pain, and reassures them that its wounds will heal, and it can operate for 120 years on its power cell. It also reveals that its CPU is a learning computer, capable of becoming more human-like through interaction. In an alternative scenario, the Terminator explains that its learning function is typically disabled by Skynet. Curious, John and Sarah decide to access its CPU. Sarah, distrustful, initially wants to destroy the chip to eliminate any threat, but John persuades her of the necessity of keeping the Terminator operational for their safety. They reset the chip, enhancing the Terminator's ability to learn, underlining a shift in Sarah's willingness to consider John's input on strategic decisions. Overnight, the Terminator hotwires a new vehicle, and at John's suggestion, checks for keys behind the sun visor. They leave the city and head to one of Sarah's desert hideouts. During the journey, John teaches the Terminator slang phrase like "hasta la vista baby" to make it sound more human. He even tries to teach it to smile, using a man at a phone booth as an example, but the Terminator's attempt is awkward. Observing children playing with toy guns, John reflects on human nature's self-destructive tendencies, a sentiment the Terminator agrees with. Sarah queries about Skynet's origins, learning from the Terminator that Miles Bennett Dyson, a Cyberdyne systems engineer, will create a critical microprocessor that leads to Skynet taking over military defense systems. This results in Skynet becoming self-aware and initiating a nuclear apocalypse to thwart human attempts to shut it down. Meanwhile, at the Dyson home, Miles is absorbed in his work on the microprocessor, neglecting a promise to his wife Tarissa to take their children swimming. Despite her playful critique of his priorities, Miles realizes the importance of family time and decides to join them. Sarah, John, and the Terminator arrive at an apparently abandoned desert ranch, where her friend Enrique Salceda cautiously emerges upon recognizing her voice. He reluctantly welcomes them, though concerned they are wanted fugitives and uneasy about them taking his supplies and weapons. Sarah plans to leave after nightfall and advises Enrique to also flee due to the impending danger. As they prepare, John shares his childhood experiences with weapons and his difficulty living a normal life after Sarah's arrest. He learns from the Terminator that it fears neither death nor feels emotions. Its sole purpose is to complete its mission. John relates to this detachment, despite not fully embracing his future role. In a lighter moment, the Terminator even smiles when discovering a minigun. While fixing a truck, John ponders his future father, reflecting on the temporal complexities of his existence. He tries to explain the human concept of crying to the Terminator, which struggles to comprehend emotional pain. After repairing the truck, John teaches the Terminator to high-five, observed by Sarah from afar. Sarah reflects on the unique relationship between John and the Terminator. She sees the Terminator as a consistent and protective presence, unlike any other father figure John has had. In her eyes, the Terminator, unwavering and dedicated, is the most reliable guardian in their chaotic reality, making it, ironically, the sanest choice for a protector. Sarah watches Enrique's family play as she carves at a wooden table, then drifts into a dream. In her dream, she's in a green pasture, separated by a fence from a playground where children, including a younger version of herself, are playing. Suddenly, a nuclear explosion erupts, engulfing everything in flames and destruction, leaving only Sarah's skeletal remains clinging to the fence. She awakens from this nightmare to the carved words, "No fate," realizing she must act to prevent this apocalyptic vision. Determined, Sarah grabs her rifle and gear, and without explaining, swiftly leaves in a car. John, upon seeing her depart, learns from Enrique that he and the Terminator should head south to meet Sarah later. However, realizing Sarah's likely target, John explains to the Terminator that no fate is a message from his future self, emphasizing that the future is not fixed and can be shaped by their actions. Concluding that Sarah plans to kill Miles Dyson to alter the future, they rush after her. En route, John and the Terminator discuss the potential consequences of Dyson's death on the future, with the Terminator noting its possible necessity to prevent war. John rebukes the Terminator for its lack of empathy for human life, urging it to understand the importance of each life. Sarah Connor, positioned outside the Dyson residence behind the swimming pool, sets up her sniper rifle aimed at Miles Dyson, who is working at his computer inside. As she prepares to shoot, Dyson's son Danny inadvertently saves his father by bumping him with a remote-controlled car, causing Sarah's shot to miss and strike the computer instead. Realizing he is under attack, Dyson ducks for cover while Sarah fires more rounds into the house. In the chaos, Dyson is wounded by a bullet to his shoulder. Confronted by his pleading family, Sarah advances into the house with a handgun, driven by rage and blaming Dyson for the future destruction. However, when faced with the frightened family and the realization of her actions, she is unable to kill him and breaks down crying. John and the Terminator arrive shortly after, finding the house damaged and the situation tense. John comforts his distraught mother, while the Terminator assesses Dyson's wound and instructs how to manage it. Dyson, curious and scared, asks about their identities. To reveal their true nature, John directs the Terminator to demonstrate its non-human nature by cutting away the flesh of its arm, exposing the metallic structure beneath, similar to what Dyson had previously seen at Cyberdyne. The shocking revelation prompts the Terminator to ask for the Dyson's attention for what comes next. Sarah narrates as the Terminator explains the impending doom of Judgment Day and Skynet's role in it to Miles Dyson, the man unknowingly responsible for creating technology that will lead to 3 billion deaths. Dyson is shocked by his unintended consequences, but initially tries to defend his ignorance of the future outcomes. Sarah cynically criticizes his defense, but John intervenes, redirecting the conversation towards productive action. Miles agrees to abandon his project and realizes the necessity of destroying all his work at Cyberdyne, including the lab and files at his home, to prevent others from completing what he started. The group then plans a mission to infiltrate Cyberdyne and eliminate all traces of the project, including the critical components like the original Terminator chip that inspired Dyson's work. They drive to Cyberdyne, prepared with equipment for their mission. Miles tries to casually get them past security, but they eventually have to take the guard hostage to proceed. Inside Cyberdyne, complications arise when the building's security system locks them out, following an alarm triggered by another guard. Despite these setbacks, including a locked safe and disabled access codes, John uses his skills to crack the safe. As they advance towards the lab with the critical components, the Terminator blows open a door with a grenade launcher, triggering the fire suppression system. They wait for the fire-suppressing Halen gas to clear, then proceed with their mission to destroy Dyson's work, ensuring that all materials related to the project are obliterated to prevent the dark future they fear. The T-1000 arrives at the deserted Dyson residence, now appearing as a motorcycle cop. Inside, he finds destroyed computers and burning paperwork. His police radio alerts him to a situation at Cyberdyne Systems, describing suspect Sarah Connor and a white male linked to the 1984 police station massacre. At Cyberdyne, the Terminator systematically destroys computers and servers with a fire axe, while Miles Dyson points out all the crucial data storage that needs to be eradicated. Dyson, seeing a model of his new chip design, takes the axe from the Terminator and demolishes it himself. As the police encircle Cyberdyne and a helicopter scans the building, John retrieves a key from the locker, avoiding detection by the hovering helicopter. Meanwhile, Sarah and the Terminator prepare the building for demolition, setting up explosive devices throughout. The Terminator, planning to confront the police to cover their escape, assures John to trust me. Executing his plan, the Terminator blasts out a window with a desk, then unloads a minigun at the police vehicles, followed by a grenade launcher, carefully avoiding any human casualties as indicated by his display. After the ammunition is spent, the Terminator retreats back into the building as the police retaliate. Inside, John and Miles open the vault containing the critical components of Skynet. John destroys the chip fragment and metal arm, symbolically crippling Skynet's future. As a SWAT team storms the second floor of the Cyberdyne building, Sarah Connor and her group prepare to escape. John and the Terminator, wearing gas masks, exit the room first. When the SWAT team bursts in and opens fire, Miles Dyson is critically wounded but manages to hold onto the detonator. Sarah, under heavy fire, narrowly evades the SWAT team's bullets by ducking behind a desk and then makes a dash to the vault room, while the Terminator breaks through a wall to pull her to safety. They breach a steel door with a grenade launcher and head toward the elevator. Miles, now dying, holds a piece of his chip model over the detonator, telling the SWAT team leader he can't hold on much longer. Recognizing the danger, the SWAT team retreats. As they do, Miles succumbs to his injuries, dropping the piece on the detonator, causing a massive explosion that destroys the lab. Meanwhile, the elevator carrying Sarah, John, and the Terminator stops abruptly. As they encounter a SWAT-filled lobby and are bombarded with tear gas, the Terminator instructs them to stay put, assuring them it will return. It confronts the SWAT team, methodically neutralizing them while sustaining damage to its synthetic flesh. Outside, the T-1000 maneuvers its motorcycle through the wreckage and into the building. The Terminator, after disabling the SWAT team, commandeers their van, retrieves Sarah and John, and they escape amid gunfire from pursuing police officers. As the T-1000 drives its motorcycle through the demolished lab, it spots the SWAT van escaping and a nearby helicopter. The T-1000 accelerates, jumps the motorcycle from the building, and latches onto the helicopter, crashing the bike. It then morphs into liquid metal to enter the helicopter's cockpit, quickly assumes human form, and forces the pilot to jump out, taking control of the aircraft to chase the van. In the van, Sarah protects John by covering him with bulletproof vests, and also uses vests to shield the van's windows as she spots the helicopter. The Terminator, driving the van, evades gunfire and traffic, with the T-1000 closely pursuing. After a tense chase involving near collisions and maneuvering under bridges, the T-1000 shoots Sarah in the leg. The Terminator then abruptly stops the van, causing the helicopter to crash into it and wreck on the road. Amidst the chaos, the T-1000 emerges unscathed from the helicopter crash and commandeers a nearby large truck labeled liquid nitrogen. Meanwhile, Sarah, John, and the Terminator escape the overturned van and take over a pickup truck. As they drive away, the T-1000 aggressively clears its path by ramming a stopped car, continuing its relentless pursuit. John uses a T-shirt to manage Sarah's bleeding, while the Terminator navigates the pickup truck, trying to stay ahead of the pursuing truck driven by the T-1000. With the pickup's maximum speed capped at 60 miles per hour, they are at a disadvantage. During a tense chase, the T-1000 repeatedly attempts to ram them, even trying to crush their truck against a guardrail. The Terminator then instructs John to take the wheel while it launches a grenade at the T-1000's truck, causing it to veer slightly off course. Directed by the Terminator, John takes an off-ramp, but the T-1000 continues the pursuit. After dodging another truck, the Terminator's subsequent grenade strike hits the T-1000's truck, which then crashes into the back of their pickup again, causing the Terminator to drop a grenade shell. John maneuvers the pickup through the gates of a steel mill, with the T-1000 still in close pursuit. Climbing onto the hood of the T-1000's truck, the Terminator fires an entire clip from its Car-15 rifle into the T-1000. It then quickly steers the T-1000's truck to the left, causing it to topple and slide behind them. The Terminator holds on to the overturned truck as John drives through a large steel foundry, narrowly escaping the persistent threat. The pickup truck crashes into a parked lift truck, narrowly missing John and Sarah. Simultaneously, the liquid nitrogen truck slides into the steel mill, rupturing and spilling its contents. The cold nitrogen vapor spreads quickly, forcing the workers to evacuate. As the T-1000 exits the truck, it's visibly affected by the extreme cold, moving sluggishly and starting to freeze. The T-1000 struggles to move as frost forms on it, and it ultimately breaks off its own limbs trying to free itself from the frozen floor. Finally immobilized, it becomes completely frozen. The Terminator, now back on its feet, delivers the finishing blow with a gunshot, shattering the frozen T-1000 into pieces while coolly remarking, "Hasta la vista, baby." However, the battle isn't over. Nearby molten metal begins to heat the shattered remains of the T-1000, causing the pieces to thaw and reform into a liquid state. The pieces merge back into a cohesive form, and the T-1000 resumes its pursuit. Despite its reformation, the T-1000 exhibits signs of damage from its freezing ordeal. Its arm, after adhering to a striped bar, mimics the bar's pattern, indicating a glitch in its system. It manually corrects its appearance but continues to show glitches, indicating it's struggling to maintain its form. John, Sarah, and the Terminator reach the edge of a molten metal pool, but the intense heat is too much for Sarah. As they retreat, they encounter the T-1000. The Terminator instructs John and Sarah to continue on, while it stays to confront the enemy. Despite John's protests, Sarah pulls him away as the Terminator prepares for combat. The two machines engage in a fierce fight, slamming each other into metal structures around them. Despite the Terminator's efforts, the T-1000 traps its arm in machinery and leaves it immobilized. Meanwhile, Sarah lowers John to safety on a conveyor belt, choosing to confront the T-1000 herself. She shoots it, briefly incapacitating it, but the T-1000 recovers and pins her to the wall with a blade-like finger. It tortures her to coerce her into calling John out, but she resists. Just as the situation seems dire, the Terminator, having freed itself by severing its trapped arm, intervenes with an iron bar, momentarily disrupting the T-1000. The T-1000 recovers and beats the Terminator with the bar, eventually pinning it against a wall with a beam and severely damaging it. As the Terminator struggles towards its grenade launcher, the T-1000 impales it with the bar, causing catastrophic damage. Electrical discharges signal the Terminator's shutdown, and its glowing red eye dims, marking its apparent demise. Sarah, exhausted and wounded, manages to reload her shotgun. Meanwhile, John, having crawled out from a conveyor belt, hides behind some nearby equipment. The seemingly disabled Terminator revives, discovering an alternate power source within itself. It then retrieves the iron bar from its body, grabs the grenade launcher, and prepares for combat. John hears Sarah calling him and moves toward her, but he encounters two versions of her. One, the real Sarah, is limping and seeking his help. The other, holding a shotgun, is the T-1000 mimicking Sarah. John recognizes the imposter when he sees the fake Sarah's feet melded to the floor. He instructs the real Sarah to shoot. She does, hitting the T-1000, which quickly recovers from the damage and resumes its pursuit. As the T-1000 teeters near a molten metal pool, Sarah empties her shotgun, but fails to push it in. Mocking them, the T-1000 prepares to attack. At that critical moment, the Terminator arrives on a conveyor belt, armed with the grenade launcher. John and Sarah duck as the Terminator fires directly into the T-1000's torso. The grenade explodes spectacularly, tearing the T-1000 apart. Unable to maintain its form, the T-1000 falls into the molten metal pool below. In its final moments, it thrashes and morphs through its various disguises, emitting screams of agony. Ultimately, it transforms into a distorted face that dissolves, marking its definitive destruction. After defeating the T-1000, John helps the battered Terminator stand. It humorously remarks that it needs a vacation. As they gaze at the molten pool, John confirms the T-1000's demise, and the Terminator confirms it is terminated. John tosses the remaining pieces of the T-1000 into the molten steel, signifying the end of Skynet's threat. However, the Terminator informs Sarah that one more chip, the one in its own head, needs to be destroyed to ensure no remnants of Skynet remain. It hands Sarah the control for an electric pulley, explaining that it cannot self-terminate and must be lowered into the molten steel. John pleads desperately with the Terminator to stay, but it insists on completing its mission to prevent future threats. Understanding human emotions more deeply now, the Terminator tells John it understands why humans cry, though it cannot do so itself. John tearfully hugs the Terminator, which then shakes Sarah's hand before grasping the chain to be lowered. Sarah activates the pulley, and the Terminator is slowly submerged in the molten steel, giving a final thumbs up as it disappears beneath the surface, signaling its end. The camera then captures a highway at night, reflecting on Sarah's newfound hope for the future. She muses that if a machine can learn the value of human life, perhaps humanity can as well. If you enjoyed this video, don't be shy to hit the like button, and if you disliked it, hit the dislike button twice, just to be sure. It would be best if you watched the whole movie. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe for more videos like this.